we knew the storm was coming. I don't take vacation very much because I feel like one of the reasons I got a show is because I didn't take vacations, and I felt like the other people who I kept replacing kept taking vacations, and so still to this day feel like if I take a vacation, there's somebody much smarter and younger who's going to just take my place. And Robert Krulwich, a correspondent who at the time was at ABC when I was at ABC, once said to me, "Nobody ever gives you the crown. There's never a point in your career that you reach that you think, I'm safe, I'm here." And he was saying this, I think, at the time about Peter Jennings. Like, even Peter Jennings, at the height of his career, didn't think he was safe. Like, there was always somebody nipping at his heels. And so I didn't quite know what Robert was talking about at the time. I totally get what he's talking about now. And so to this day, I don't take a lot of vacation, or almost 90% of the vacations I've had, I've ended up cutting short to go and cover some story. So I was on a vacation. We saw the storm was coming. I was in Croatia. I flew back. I was only able to get to Baton Rouge by the time the storm hit. So and at the time there had been a lot of hurricanes in 2005, and I was really interested. I'd never done hurricane coverage, so I was really interested in the sort of the technology and the strategy of covering hurricanes, because it's like planning a battle. I mean, you have your first position, then you have your fallback position when all else goes to hell. And the key is staying on the air. You know, at CNN during a hurricane, it's about staying on the air as long as you possibly can. So you need to be able to know how to position the satellite truck, stick it in a building that has a 90-degree angle so that if the wind picks up the satellite dish, it won't flip over the truck, and how to cover the microphone in condoms so water doesn't get in. The storm happened. I was in Baton Rouge. We were on the air broadcasting through the whole thing. And a lot of people at the time thought New Orleans had dodged a bullet. The levees, had not broken at the time, or had not been broken, and in some places been topped. I was in Baton Rouge, and then I think it was early in the morning when it hit, or by the time I got off air, it was early in the morning, and I ended up, because I had to do a show that night, I think it was a Monday night, we decided, well, we want to be in a place where there's still some of the storm for my broadcast that night. So I drove to Philadelphia, Mississippi. So I was basically following the storm so that when I broadcast on air at night, there would still be some of the storm left for the actual broadcast. So I ended up in Philadelphia, Mississippi, very close to Meridian, which is actually where my dad is from. And I did a show from the side of a road, a gas station. I just pulled over. We did an entire show from there. Slept, found a place to sleep in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Woke up the next day really with no information at all because all the phones were down. We had no communication with anybody. And I couldn't get in touch with the office. So we were totally on our own. Philadelphia, Mississippi, had no idea what was happening anywhere else. I went into a Walmart to buy supplies, some food and stuff. And a lady at the counter said, "Y'all need to go to Waveland because I have family there. We haven't heard from them, and nobody's reporting on any of these small towns along the Mississippi coast." So I thought, oh, okay. So I had a satellite truck. It was me, a satellite truck, and I went to the satellite truck and I said, we're gonna just go down to the coast because that's where I think we should go. We ended up driving down to we couldn't make it to Waveland for that show that night. We ended up in Gulfport, I think it was, and which was, wrecked. Did a show that night from Gulfport. So that was Tuesday night show. Slept, I think, in a vehicle, or maybe CNN had found a place to sleep, a house or a hotel or something, and woke up Wednesday. And at that point, I was able to communicate with my office by satellite phone in the satellite truck. And so then we started getting information, like there's stuff happening in New Orleans, but I decided, well, we have people in New Orleans, and I'm not going to be able to get there right now. I can't get a helicopter. Driving there, it seems like it's going to be really difficult, and I think there's value in just staying in the Gulf Coast of Mississippi because nobody's really reporting on these towns. So I went Wednesday morning. I met up with some guys from FEMA, some body recovery teams, and I followed them to Waveland, went out with them while they were looking for people who died, and spent the day with them, shot a story with them. I think I stayed probably Wednesday night, Thursday night in Waveland doing stories, and it was just, I mean, it was an extraordinary time, and ended up going to New Orleans, I think probably, I don't know, Friday. So at that point it was day, 4 or 5, and then just spent the month in New Orleans, traveling around Louisiana, going back to Waveland, and so we knew the day after, I started to realize the scope of this. I didn't realize quite the scope of it in New Orleans because it was still very early, the reporting we were getting. But once I saw some of these towns along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, I knew this was extraordinary. I mean, we found, I remember going out with this FEMA recovery team and going to people's homes and, finding a family that had drowned in their living room, and their bloated bodies were still there. They had special needs kids. There was a refrigerator. They had tried to get the kids into the attic as the water came in. You could see the children's footprints still on the refrigerator. They'd put them on the refrigerator and then tried to lift them up. There was a woman laying dead on the street. It was just, it was stunning to see. I mean, it wasn't anything I hadn't seen before in a lot of places, but to see it in the United States, and to see it, day 2, day 3, day 4, to see people still left out on the street because there were no refrigerated trucks, there were no body bags, there was no, the FEMA team would identify the house and say, okay, they'd mark on the door, there's 4 bodies inside, but there was nobody to come and get them. And, to see that in the United States was pretty stunning. Those were times when there wasn't a lot of preparation for each show. So I would, we didn't have a lot of communication with the office back in New York. So basically we would come up live for the hour that I was on TV. And there was no script, there was nothing. It was just, I suddenly had communication with the control room in New York, and they'd be like, okay, we have Senator Mary Landrieu coming on the show. So you're going to talk to her right out of this, out of this. So there wasn't a lot of preparation for anything. So all the reporting was based on what we were seeing. And yet, at times, like when I wasn't on the air, I'd be hearing in my ear other people on other shows talking, and like politicians talking and thanking each other and saying what a great job things were and how things were well in hand. And it was completely contradictory to what we were seeing out there every day. I mean, you're out with a body recovery team that doesn't have body bags and has no place to put our fellow citizens, who have drowned in their living rooms, and people are rotting in the streets, and it was incredibly frustrating. And I felt, again, it was one of those times where you feel like you're in the right place, and you feel privileged to be there, and privileged to represent and give voice to people who don't have a voice and who don't have access to the political leaders who are not there. And it was interesting. I mean, I remember, I interviewed Senator Mary Landrieu, and she started off the interview thanking the president and about the response, and something about it just it just surprised me. It stunned me. I mean, I always try to be polite to everybody, but I was blown away by what she was saying, and felt she needs to know what's happening here. And it was interesting because I think I had this exchange with her that clearly surprised her, and people commented on, and I didn't realize. I mean, I'd just seen this family dead in their homes, and I just thought it was infuriating to have politicians thanking each other, and it just seems so wildly inappropriate, and so disrespectful to what the people there were actually going through. And then I heard, like a day later or something, she had gotten to Louisiana. I think she was on with George Stephanopoulos, and she had suddenly she was saying that she wanted to slap President Bush, and that she was very upset by the response. So I thought it was interesting that, wow, what a difference a day makes.